I'm wondering. So you said Batfleck's not, he's out, and then Henry Cavill maybe. But I'm wondering if they're just gonna go like new universe type thing with the new Batman, new everything, and then transition some characters over. But I don't know how they would do that necessarily.
What I do know for a fact is The Rock has made it very clear that he is going to make Black Adam fight Henry Cavill Superman. He has prioritized that. So I know with
That's
his
part of the
personality,
deal.
he's going to make that. Yeah,
Maui's
yeah,
got beef.
yeah. So in a way, it's good because it's like because there are a lot of scenes in comic books or even and cartoon movies where yeah, Black Adam's fighting, Superman and Shazam at the same time, and giving them a hard time. So I think he's aware of that, and he made it very clear, like, as you kind of alluded to, he wanted to work out at such a point where he doesn't have to have any fake, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
yeah. So that's where he's at. He worked out at the point where there was no need to have any added little ribs and muscular, like everything is going to be just natural for him. So, but he's made it very clear that's a priority, and that is going to happen. That is.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like even if, Warner Brothers is playing around with Henry Cavill, like, at least there's an anchor to keep him
Yeah.
around for,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So it is.
Because definitely Man of Steel was really good. It started off that whole thing. I have varying opinions about some of the other movies, but Man of Steel is always
Yeah.
solid. Got to go back and watch it again sometime.
Honestly, one of my favorite movies. Probably one of my favorite.
Really?
Man, I'm telling you. Every aspect from beginning to end, I just thought, this is a masterpiece. And it's like 2013. This is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
This is a masterpiece. The musical score, the action, like the story, the dialogue, the character development. Like,
Zod,
it's like
I will find him.
I love it. It's like, man, genius. This is genius. This
Yeah.
film is, oh, and I'm just like, but the only challenge I was thinking to myself is that the idea of trying to top that movie with another Superman, like, it's like, how would you even, how would a person even go about that? So I
Yeah.
kind of see maybe that's kind of why they don't want to take it on. I don't know, but it doesn't make
Maybe.
sense.
I
I kind
mean,
of feel like,
Michael B. Jordan's hot right now, so I'm sure they can do with anything with him, right?
yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
But so okay, so let's get into something a little different then about you said Black Adam and Superman. They're trying to show off. How would that go comic book wise? Just the characters. What are your opinions?
Oh, you mean like actual, like, how would it?
If they
I mean,
fought?
honestly, yeah, honestly, I think that I think because of their philosophies, as usual with a lot of these kind of fights between, because I think Black Adam, he definitely doesn't mind cutting corners. There are versions of him where he's trying to be somewhat good. There's other versions where he's straight out villain.
Yeah,
But I think, yeah, and I think with a lot of these superhero films, like, the idea is always to have, of course, the good guy win above all. So typically, what I'm seeing, I'm assuming, is I think Black Adam is going to do some impressive moves, and he's going to, like, really hurt Superman and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I think Superman's going to,
I'm not
gonna
talking
overpower.
about like your Hollywood, cookie cutter. Or this is what audience will enjoy. This is what should happen. Hero villain. I'm talking about blow for blow. Like stakes chips are down. Like they're fighting. Who's gonna win?
To be honest with you, I'm still going to lean towards Superman because
Really?
Superman has always made it. Yeah, he always made it very clear in a lot of different stories where he is purposely holding back, even with
I
other
was
superheroes.
about to say, yeah.
Back. Yeah, and I get it. It's like I don't, I'm not. I don't know if I told you, but I was not excited about the idea of the Injustice series, to be honest with you, because Superman is like, like, to me,
He's your
he's
boy.
always,
He's your
yeah,
boy.
yeah. And the reason why it wasn't necessarily because of his abilities, but his philosophy on protecting humanity and even being one of us and all this stuff. Like, I just thought, man, this is like a great character. Like, he's so powerful, but he has this moral code, and
Yep. Yep. You mean
and
a
the idea
moral
of,
weakness?
yeah, and I've always thought it was intriguing how, like, I remember even on Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, I think it
Yeah.
was the first or second one, and the Green Goblin is holding, like, Mary Jane, and then he's holding like a train or that, with people, passengers, and he, like, dropped them at the same time at the bridge, and, like, for Spider-Man, it's like both of them are valuable.
Yep.
Both of them. I'm gonna catch both of them. And that's the hero dilemma is like, it's like like I have to protect. I have to. There's a moral code, and he put himself in a very compromising situation because he caught Mary Jane and he caught
So he
he's like
did catch both.
Yeah, he did, and I thought
So Andrew Garfield has no excuse, is what you're saying. Is that where you're going with that?
Andrew Garfield, if you ever stumble on this, man, please. I didn't say that. Okay? I didn't say that. Hey, I'm a fan. I'm a fan, brother. I'm a fan.
I mean, if Tobey Maguire can do it.
You make a good point. That's what we have,
I forgot about that. I hadn't seen the first one in a while. I didn't know he count both of them.
Yeah, because I kept thinking because I remember when I was first watching, I was like, oh my goodness, like that's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it, and he was stuck,
Yeah.
So the Green Goblin was going by and smacking him, and I'm like, oh man, this is like the worst situation to be in, But
Yeah.
that's the hero dilemma is, But usually what happens, like I said, with Superman or whoever else, I'm assuming like they're gonna. Like I think one of the dynamics with Spider-Man was, Green Goblin made the mistake of saying, oh, okay, well after I deal with you, I'm gonna go find your little pretty girlfriend, and then Spider-Man was like, "Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's usually the
Catalyst,
thing.
like that sets him off.
Yeah. You don't say that. You don't say
Lit
that.
a stick of dynamite.
Oh yeah. You don't say that. And Spider-Man, like even in that movie, was a little bit more aggressive in the fight. He was dodging fat more because to him it's like, okay, I can't afford to lose now.
Yeah.
I can't afford to lose. Like it's not about me now. It's about, So it's interesting, but I don't know. I just feel like with Superman and Black Adam, I mean, I do think it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be impressive. And I hope they like fight somewhere in the desert or something like that because they will tear down
You
a city.
wish. It's going to be the most populated city in the world.
And honestly, in Man of Steel, I thought it was a little over the top at first, but I remember the directors, talking about why they wanted to have all this destruction. And it's kind of like resembling like all the Greek mythologies and gods and stuff like that, and the destruction.
Oh.
Yeah,
like they're so far above, like they could.
Yeah. And which I was like, oh, okay, And realistically, if this was to take place,
I thought they did really well. Like, hold on, pause for a second. I'm about to give Batman vs Superman some good credit. But I thought it was really good how they introduced Batfleck in that aspect, right? Like he's seeing the destruction and he's like, this person is a threat.
Oh yeah.
So I thought they took that kind of negative aspect and really did a good play on it, Speaking of that negative aspect though, like that ending scene, he's about to like break Zod's neck. I think he doesn't want to kill anybody or something. And Zod's about to laser a family.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, I can't let you, but all the buildings and everything's gone, destroyed. Thousands of civilians are just like on the wayside.
That scene to me was that scene, and there was another scene, and it's in Walking Dead season 2. Those scenes to me are very important scenes to me because we know
wait,
what.
Describe the scene from Walking Dead season 2 you're talking about.
Okay. So by that point, Rick Grimes returns. Shane, his best friend, who was another sheriff with him, was kind of leading this group all this time until Rick showed up. And when Rick came back, he kind of got more acclimated back into the group, and he sort of took lead because obviously he was more qualified. He had more of a balanced view on.
Yeah.
And Shane was even being intimate with Rick's wife because he assumed Rick was gone. But when Rick returned, it was almost like Shane couldn't get back to, okay, this is Rick's wife. He continued to try to pursue her. So for a while, I think Shane, who displayed, obviously, like he had, he was very strong as well as a leader, but he lacked certain attributes that Rick obviously has, just like Superman has over Zod.
Yeah.
And, but it was interesting because Shane decided that he was going to off Rick, and he led him away. And this is season 2. This is like
the end of season 2.
Yeah. And they were at the farm, and he kind of led him away, and it was dark, and Shane just was walking, and figured he was going to kind of lead Rick and just kind of pop him, let him know like, hey man, like we can't have both of us here in this group. And what I love about that scene is I remember Rick was trying to really talk to him, like genuinely
He
talking,
was
like
like begging to for his friend to come
yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is, Rick was faster with his gun, and he knew it. He knew he was faster, but he pleaded. He didn't want that. He didn't want that, and it hurt him that he had to, off this guy that he had such a history with. And it was the same thing, in my opinion, with Man of Steel. It's like Zod put Superman in this position where it's like, the only way that this fight is gonna end is if I die or you die, and this is what Zod told Superman. And so, yeah, it's like it's crazy how Superman has him in his lock, and it's like, okay, fight's over. Like I
Yeah.
won, obviously. And Zod's saying, well, you love all these people more than us. Your own people. Well, you're gonna watch them die. And Superman's screaming and yelling, and you described the scene. And to me, it was like I think about stuff like that all the time. Like, I'm not a superhero. I'm not a
Yeah.
sheriff in the zombie apocalypse, but I think like, man, that's a rough situation to carry with you because in my head, I don't want to take any human life. I don't want to take anybody's life, but
Yep.
but what if you're in that position? What if that is the situation? So we kind
That's
of
yeah. That's always the great concept in any media when it comes up, like these threads and these themes. When it gets something a human emotion out of you, right? And obviously the situation's exaggerated. A lot of times it's sci-fi or whatnot. But it presents the same moral conundrum that's been people thought about and discussed for years, right? Like all of the time, and it's just relevant. It's interesting. That's why it's like it's so engaging. You're like, oh, what would I do? Oh, I don't know. And
yeah,
honestly, like you have your own moral code and everything, but when you put yourself in that situation, things get a little gray. Nobody's perfect.
yeah. It's
I am curious about your comparison though, because I guess from the perspective of the people, that Superman's people, that makes more sense. But Shane and Rick were best buds, and Superman and Zod were enemies. They never really knew each other. They didn't really have much of a history. So kind of, I get the basic comparison, but kind of where do you think Superman really has cause to care that much about Zod?
well, I mean, yeah. Think about this for a moment. You're on Earth for about 30 some odd years, and you're the only person like yourself that's yeah, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And your body absorbs the sun uniquely than everyone else. You have to hold back, like there's a lot of childhood scenes where he had to hold back because he could have killed somebody when they were bullying him as a kid, he could have killed him.
yeah,
And the idea of having someone even older that he could have related to, that would have been ideal.
yeah,
Like, yeah, think about that. What if there's like two Supermans? That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. So I think in his mind, he's like, oh man, like there's people just like me, and the fact that he had to take all of them on, that's like that. That's kind of hurtful.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
I didn't come here to destroy everything. Like this is my home. Oh, why don't we do this together? And
yeah.
so it was kind of hard because you could see Superman kind of holding back, and Zod was the aggressor in the fighting.
Oh, oh, oh. So you
Uh,
you were saying about? Do you remember what we were at?
I mean, yeah, just in a general sense, man. Just the idea of Superman or even Rick or just that moral conundrum as you kind of alluded to. I think it's fascinating to me because it's one thing to for I don't know the Joker or Two Face to kind of threaten someone's life. It's like, okay, we know they're willing to kill somebody. They don't have any moral guidelines when it comes to that,
Yeah,
but Batman does. So I think it's intriguing, and I feel like even with The Walking Dead, they've done a very good job with causing Rick to be like that balanced character. Like I kind of feel like to some extent, um, every character has kind of drifted a little bit, got things a little too personal, and Rick has always been very anchored into like I don't know, like human life and dignity and giving people a chance and I always thought that was just fascinating, even in that setup because um, how do you know you can trust people, in that environment and stuff like that? So
well, that's what's
yeah,
awesome about that show is it shows you the deterioration of
right,
Rick
yeah,
and like a leader
yeah,
and it being forced into a leadership role, and even the villains too, the governor, all the leaders in that show go through
yeah,
the same problem,
yeah.
and
You're right.
they react very differently. And
Yes,
some
yeah,
models are sustainable, some aren't. It's just anything like that post-apocalyptic when humans are forced to deal with irrational problems more so than regular life. Like the way, and that's Joker's whole concept. He tells Batman all the time, "You are one day away, one bad day away from being just like me." Or I guess to James Gordon, he tells more so that specific, I think, Killing Joke arc. But he tries to prove, and Harvey Dent even, that's the big theme of him. He's like, he tries to prove to anybody, like, you're just one bad day away from being just like me. You think I'm crazy, but I'm not.
Yeah.
That's
true.
That's why it's so popular, and that's like resonates so much. Like,
I
think we're all kind of scared of the unknown because you think you know yourself, but you don't until you're put in a tested situation.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
And that can be like not even just with this specific reference, but as far as like you practice a skill, right? You can be really good on paper, but you don't know until you try it out.
Correct.
You know.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely a really interesting concept.
Yeah. I mean, I think about that too. I mean, I like the way you phrase that because it's one thing to even practice things, on a mat, martial arts and stuff like that. But let's say someone actually does have a knife or a gun, and they're really close to. It's like, okay, your adrenaline is pumping, and then you may be thinking about your family and the people around you, and you want to, so it's like, I don't know. It's different. It's different to actually be in the experience.
And then you took too long to think, and you're stabbed. Like,
yeah. And there's a lot of video game scenarios that give you that. It's like you hesitate to react, and boom. It's like
what are those called? Like motion time, quick time events. Quick time events, right? And I think even in that Resident Evil 5 playthrough, they have a lot of quick time events. I even expressed to you, like, I feel like if I don't get it on the first try, I die in real life. Like,
yeah.